2191.
Into a Friday, today being the final Friday of the month of August, coming to you on the radio, but also in rebroadcast here on Marshfield Media Access, because we have Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Summer is winding down already for us, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you just mentioned how quick it went, and it did. Wow, it was like a blink. It was a busy summer for the department, and then me personally. It was school starting on Tuesday, and it went way too fast, but it is what it is.
I think that's why it seems like it goes so fast, is because there's so many things that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a busy summer, for the department. But now we're getting ready for school and the fall, and the snow is going to be flying soon. I hate to be a downer, but it's going to happen eventually. So
it always does, right?
Yeah. If you don't like the snow, I guess you need to move to Florida or something, right?
They're not having a good time of it here this weekend either.
No. I was thinking about Sheriff Reichert. I know he's down there now, and I'm assuming he's going to make his way back up here just to get out of the area. And then I've got family down there too. My dad's down in the Naples area, and my in-laws are in the Fort Myers area, and I'm going to check in with them here after the show just to see what the last projections are. The hurricane's going to kind of track right towards Tampa on the East Coast. So, and it's a Category 4 right now, and that's a big issue down in Florida. But people say that they're used to that. I don't care. I don't want to be down there when a storm like that hits. My dad rode one of them out in the Naples area, and he said he'll never do it again. So hopefully he's made some plans to work his way north or come up to Wisconsin. I'm hoping it'd be great to see him.
If you're watching us on video, you already are having the luxury of knowing how this all came out here, but we're talking to you on the final Friday of August when we're looking at what has probably been one of the biggest hurricanes forecast to be hitting landfall in Florida. So
last couple of years, definitely.
Coming up here, this is a Labor Day weekend. We're on the final Friday of the month of August, talking with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker here this morning. So that's right. The former sheriff was down there, and you've got family down there. And I was thinking to myself as we were talking here about the fact that the Farmer's Almanac and, snow like we had last February, forecast again for this January, and cold temperatures again. Yeah,
well, that's kind of nice to hear in a way. I hope nobody's upset with me, but since I love the snowmobile, we'll see if that happens.
Well, for you, it's fine. For the outdoor enthusiasts.
But I don't think you're real happy, are you?
Not particularly, no. My snowblower gets a workout.
Otherwise, I can come shovel your driveway once.
There you go.
Just let me know. I'll come up and I can do it.
I'm not sure the neighbors would know what to think if there's guys in uniform out there shoveling. Is he in jail? Does he get that kind of service now at Wood County Jail where if they put you in incarceration, they come over and shovel your sidewalk for you? Well, I don't want to get a fine. So
yeah, there you go.
You guys
community service, right?
I thought to myself, water up to your hips and your roof blown off.
Yeah.
I thought, people down there think, how could you stand that winter? I said, well, because I can go in and warm up. I've still got a house. I've still,
exactly.
The roof is still on it. I mean, I can go in and do things.
Yeah, well, with my dad's place, his roof, just from the last hurricane, which is, I think, 2-3 years ago, maybe more, they just finally replaced the roof. So hopefully, as structures improve down there, I'm hoping that there isn't as much damage. But we'll find out come Monday. That's when they're projecting the storm to hit us on.
Is he
Monday.
from here? Are you guys from?
Yeah, we're from the central Wisconsin area, Stevens Point area. My dad retired and went down to Florida when he was 60. And he's been down there now for 18 years. So he used to come back and forth to Florida, from Wisconsin to Florida, and had 2 properties. But then as he got older, he just said, I'll just stay down in Florida. I can deal with the heat in the summers. And he's an avid golfer, so perfect spot for him.
What about the difference that you notice even in structural they don't build them like they do up
No.
here because we're so airtight and everything is so built for the winter times that we have up here. But
Right. There's no basements down there. It's really different as far as the the residential building and stuff. But I think as time goes on, structures improve more, like the roof and things like that. The codes are different than they are up here, just because they have to deal with that type of weather. Here we get we have like bad storms we did a few weeks ago, and we can talk about that a little bit more on our response. But it's not to the level of what you're seeing down in Florida.
Talking with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker here on this final Friday in August, live on AM 1450 WDLB, coming to you in video through Marshfield Media Access. You can find them on channel 989 on your Charter Digital tier. We'll be playing on and off throughout the month until our next program is recorded. So we're talking about that. You said just a moment ago that we had bad weather here.
We did.
I guess.
Yeah.
You had some disaster declarations, and
we wound up getting some funding through the federal level. We were. It was ski weekend. I'm on the aqua skiers, and it was state weekend at Lake Wazeecha, and we were also at Dick Crow, one of our past deputies, has been retired for several years, passed away, and we were at his funeral. Our honor guard was doing casket guard, and then the storm hit, and that's where I was, and you could just see it come in, and then you hear all the tones, and once I left the funeral, it was trees down everywhere, power lines down, no power, and our EOC was activated by our emergency management, and that was the first place I went to. Okay, where are we going? Where are the big needs here in Wood County? And it seemed like that storm tracked from Pittsville, going directly east into Rapids, and then through Grand Rapids, then over to Portage County and Plover, and the damage was very, very similar, but it was devastating just to see how many trees down on houses. Our retired Lieutenant Dave Loudy, his house had 2 huge trees go right into it, and it was sad to see all this damage. But on the other side, no fatalities. Very minor injuries were reported in the city of Wisconsin Rapids. And the ski show, where you have thousands of people coming to that event, you have all the warning systems out there, and the powers that be, the safety committee at that event, communicating with storm chasers, if you want to call them that, the ham radio operators, just keeping in communication with what you're seeing on radar, and what the spotters are out there communicating to people on site. They had that event evacuated well over an hour before the storm hit.
Well, you'd have to, because you think of a bunch of people sitting on a beach, and they're probably living in a camper. They can't go in there.
Right.
That'll be dumped over.
No, there's a stone shelter on site that a lot of people evacuated to, or they got to different areas. But there was some damage in the park itself. Some campers were damaged, but other than that, that was almost a direct hit on Wazeecha, and it just shows the pre-planning and people working together, whether it's law enforcement, fire, EMS, the town chairman, to people part of the committee of that ski show, just working together, making sure that people are safe, and it sure worked, because then after the storm hit, there was some cleanup going on. Obviously, there was damage in the park. The show started probably about 2-3 hours after the storm hit, and it was just amazing. I thought that the tournament was going to get canceled, but they got things going. It just delayed it a little bit. Like our local teams wound up going on Sunday morning, and it was very crowded because there was no power, but there was power out there because a lot of things were being operated on generators, and all the food sold out right away because everybody in the community was looking for places to find food, and we got the benefits out of that, and people got to see some really nice ski shows.
You got twigs in the water, though. You got to watch you don't fall on that kind of stuff.
Well, we don't fall.
No,
I'm
don't
kidding.
Fly either. So
no, I fall once in a while, believe me. But people get out in the water. There's a safety committee that takes it very serious. Get out in the water and make sure everything is cleared out, and it was. And the shows went on. It was amazing. It was really amazing to see after you see all the devastation in the area. After I left the EOC, the first place I went to was out to Wazeecha, and I couldn't get there. Every normal route was blocked from trees, and Grand Rapids Fire Department had barricades up, and I finally got there. It took me like a half hour just to get there from the courthouse, and I was just amazed at the people working together, and there was like no very minor issues.
Talking with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker this final Friday in August here on the Insight program on WDLB, 384-2191. If you'd like to call in, 384-2191. You may be watching us on Marshfield Media Access, channel 989 on your Charter Digital tier throughout the month. Talking about, what was about 20th, wasn't it? 19th, 20th, somewhere in there? In July, the governor has declared Wood County as one of the declaration of disaster areas, so funding can be gotten.
Yep. That's something that I would tell people to contact Steve Cruiser and Emergency Management, who will oversee that kind of concerns and issues. But yeah, it's nice that was declared, because that does open up funding that will help some folks out. So
in that, now you guys are part of the Emergency Management Committee, and you meet fairly regularly. Was it monthly or?
Quarterly. We'll meet, and if we're activated with that storm, we were activated along with the City of Wisconsin Rapids. And what we're doing is just maintaining communication with them. What can we help provide the city, and vice versa.
That was kind of my question. What's the checklist here? First is people.
Yep.
Making sure everybody's.
And then property. What's the duration? The biggest question was power. And I remember listening to some of the folks from the power companies down in that area saying that they've never seen this before. There was over 100 power poles now, and you think about how long that's going to take to replace. Where I live in Grand Rapids, we were out of power for 2 days. But some people that had power, I couldn't believe a half mile from us, we still had power. But some people, it had been weeks. So it really depended on where you lived and where that storm hit. But again, it's a true testament of your leaders working together and getting, like you said, it's people first. Making sure they're safe, and then where can they go? Where can they get food? Where can they get water? Generators, that was a huge thing. Anywhere around, sold out of generators immediately because people needed power. But those are all prioritized, in the EOC on, okay, what's going to happen, and then just communicating to people, hey, how long this is going to be. Power companies brought up people from all over the state and different states to help get power restored, because that was probably the biggest thing that people needed. It was like, hey, when are we going to know? And it's very, very important to communicate what's happening. Hey, this area now has power, and just so people knew that it was being worked on.
So in your world, that's the first thing to do, is make sure everyone is okay. But they're coming to you asking, where do we go? What do we do?
Right.
And how long? The hardest thing is, when is it going to come back on again? Hard to string wires when there's no poles to put it on.
Exactly. Dispatch got, I think, like 800 and some calls in 3 hours. They did an awesome job, just dealing with what was happening. And what we were doing is basically being very reactive as far as driving around, finding areas where, well, number one, roads that are blocked, and then we would message dispatch. We wouldn't call in because they were just getting so many calls, but we would send information in by our computer to say, okay, this area has got trees down. So they would keep a list going, notify that township or the highway department to come out and clear that area so people can drive. Then the other big issue that we had, and the most important, is what we've been talking about, the power. Well, with power lines being down, we were warning people. Number one, if you can stay home, stay home. But I understand people are curious, and they're going to want to drive around just to see the damage, and that does create an issue for us, obviously, because there's only so many of us working. And when you have 100 power poles or more down, then you got wires down all over the place, and you don't know if they're live. And that was the biggest warning we gave people. If you can stay home, please stay home. But if you're going to be out driving around, be aware that lines are down, and we don't know if they have energy to them. And we're hoping that nobody would get that curious to go up to a line and check it, and that didn't happen. So, but that was probably our biggest issue that that we're having as the sheriff's department is just, getting out, finding where roads are not passable, and then, letting dispatch know that and where power lines were down.
And people forget it's your house, too. I mean, as you're not immune to this as part of the law enforcement.
Several of us didn't have power and had damage to their residence. One thing that I did is checked on our jail. I know the folks back in our jail, our corrections officers, they're wondering what's going on. The city prioritized getting power back on. Well, number one, the first place was the hospital, Riverview, and then we were next. And we had a generator, a backup generator, working, fortunately, but we had power back at the courthouse within a few hours. So the impact to the courthouse was minimal. But the more important thing that my concern was, okay, the employees that are working, because they're wondering what's going on at their residence. Do they have damage? So they're checking at home with their loved ones and making sure that they're okay.
Sitting in the jail in the dark doesn't sound like the place I'd want to be at.
I wouldn't want to sit in jail at all.
Talking with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker here. You can too. 384-2191, 384-2191 on the Inside program this final Friday in August. AM 1450 WDLB's Inside program here for this final Friday in August. You know that if you're listening live. I'm telling you if you're watching us, because you could be on Marshfield Digital Cable Channel 989 or Marshfield Media Access. They are in here because we're talking with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker, our monthly visit. He makes himself available to you to talk, 384-2191. 384-2191, and you have been doing all the talking here. You brought a fellow with you. Everybody's watching on TV going, who's this guy?
Yeah, who is this guy? I feel bad. Deputy Sam Klum, he's been with the department since 2010, but he's had quite a bit of law enforcement experience. He worked previously for Adams County Sheriff's Department, Toma Police Department, and he's was recently promoted here at the Wood County Sheriff's Department to Civil Process Sergeant. So we're very happy with him earning that position. He'll be starting that very soon. Sam's been doing an outstanding job helping our civil process sergeant, currently Scott Drew. And the reason for the vacancy is Scott Drew was just hired as the police chief in Port Edwards. So great for him. It's a tough loss for the sheriff's department because Scott's, number one, a very good friend of mine, and he's been doing just an awesome job with civil process. He's a people person, and he's from Port Edwards, and it was a great opportunity when it came up. We talked quite a bit, and it's just a perfect fit for him. Like I said, he's from Port Edwards, lived there, grew up there, went to high school there. He's a known fixture in Port Edwards, and it's just a great fit for him. So, we look at it, we're losing him at the Sheriff's Department. We're gaining a great leader that we're going to continue to work with. So, with that being said, that created a promotion process that Sam worked very hard for, and I'm very, very proud to say that he was promoted to the position that will start relatively soon.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about what that department is. Sheriff said you were already helping in that area of the department.
The civil process deals with any of the paperwork that's filed through the clerk of courts.
Paperwork. Everybody loves that.
But anything as far as evictions or summons for people for court, basically that paperwork has to be given to them. So basically, you got to drive around and issue paperwork for court or follow through with evictions and everything like that.
Maybe I watch too much Cops, but it sounds like that can be a hairy job from time to time.
At time, it can be because you're dealing with people that, are potentially getting kicked out of their house and everything like that. So, yeah, you can dealing with people that are in a bad spot at that time. So.
The process that has taken place to bring you up to that has probably already evolved. You don't have a whole lot to do with that. You're just trying to follow through with the orders that you've got.
Yeah, most of these people already know. They've had paperwork mailed to them and everything like that. So it's not like it's a surprise, but it's basically the final thing where we're evicting them out, basically.
So at this point in time, I'm thinking if I were evicted, I would say I've got till the end of the month or whatever date is set, that I am have to remove myself and my property from the premises. And you get involved, what, because they don't? I mean, why does law enforcement have to be involved?
Basically because it has to go through the courts, and then we're the final issue as far as making sure that's followed through, as far as making sure the tenants or get their property back and that it can be leased again, basically.
It's the usual, like, domestic referee.
Yeah.
You're the one who has to say, this is no, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. I try to hear both sides here and make sure everybody gets, that's mine, no, that's mine, and it's their word against each other here in front of you, it seems like, from
Right.
time to time.
Yep.
So a lot of your time is spent in the field then?
Yeah, it's about half and half. Some is office as far as filing the paperwork, entering it into the system and everything like that. And then the other half is out actually doing it.
So when something comes down from the court, then you have to review it, and you're given a date when you have to go to a site?
Yep, there's several different types of papers that we serve, and each type of paper has timelines on it. So you have so much time to get it served and follow through, and then it's got to get back up to the courts to make sure that, it was followed through, everything's authenticated and everything like that. So there's a lot of timelines, and so many days you have to do this type of paper versus other types. So
A subpoena?
yep.
Now, see, I've heard stories about that too, where now they're going to ununiformed or non-uniform
Yep.
to be delivered, like a detective or something along that line. How hard is it? Does somebody have to? There's that old story: don't put your hand out. Don't grab it. Don't grab it from him, and he can't eat it. You're not served unless you take it or something.
No, we years ago changed that to have our civil process person. It's now a sergeant position. Wasn't previously, but we felt the deputy's more recognizable in uniform, and when that person in that position is going out serving papers, well, there's no question about who's serving you, and you see somebody pull up in a MARC squad car and being in uniform. There's less ambiguity. You know why somebody's there. And like Sam said, we're kind of like the last stop in the process when somebody's served a summons to either appear in court or they're being evicted. There's a lot of things that already have gone on where it's not a surprise to an individual in that situation. And another part of the position that Sam's going to be doing is he'll be an auctioneer. So periodically we have share sales. So if property goes into foreclosure and goes back to the county or a bank, Sam could talk about it a little bit more, but we do share sales at the courthouse. Is it once a month? Or
It depends on how many we have. It's generally once or twice a month.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have property that will go up for sale by auction, and then people will be notified. There's a process for that. We have to go through a timeline to have that posted so people are aware of it in the community if they're interested in the property, and then we'll go and do an auction at the courthouse in the basement.
We'll talk about that more in a moment, but a process server, from your standpoint, there could be two reasons to have a plainclothes. One is it's less suspicious. You could probably get to them without them being,
True.
on the run. And the other thing is maybe it could be a part-time position as opposed to...
We used to have two people do the position years ago, and then we condensed it down to one, and the position is pretty busy. But did it support two deputies? No. Now, there are people in the private sector that do this and serve papers for attorneys or anybody.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and a few of those are retired.
So it doesn't have to be a badge or uniform?
It doesn't have to be. If somebody we do charge for especially private summons. Right now, the rate is $60 per time serving a paper. But I know that in the private sector, people have a company, and some of them are retired deputies that will do the same thing for a price as well. So that's probably where you're going with that, because there are some retired law enforcement that are doing it part time.
So it seems to me, I've talked to somebody on the program before about that possibility. But getting back to the auction again, do you set that as a once a month, and then people who want to take it or need to use your service, so to speak, here as a sheriff's sale would then set it on that date, or do you fluctuate with them?
Basically, we work together to come up with a timeline as far as the paperwork they file, and then it's got to be posted 3 weeks in advance and everything like that at the courthouse, plus the municipality, wherever the residence is. So if it's in the township of Lincoln, it's got to be posted in that township also, so that way people are aware of it. So.
Talking with Sergeant Sam Klum here, a process server, going to be taking that position here very shortly. How does it get to that point? I'm never sure what causes a sheriff's auction to be triggered.
Well, a lot of it's back taxes or things that aren't paid completely, as far as, it's basically they haven't paid taxes and it's given back, county takes it over, is a lot of them.
I see.
Right.
A private situation where they didn't pay their loan wouldn't trigger that, would it? I mean, a financial institution doesn't invoke law enforcement.
There are some that the banks do have us sell if like half of it was paid and the rest wasn't. And then there's a minimum that they put on the price that it has to, somebody would have to pay more than that, or otherwise the bank retains it, and then, they go from there. So.
Yeah, and you have to have is a 10%. If you win the auction, you have to have 10% cash or a cashier's check.
Yeah.
So whatever property that somebody would bid on and eventually get, they have to have at least that 10% in funds to acquire it then there.
Do you actually do that, or do you contract with a local auctioneer?
As far as holding the auction?
As the actual physical, the day of on. They always say on the steps, and I'm thinking it sounds a little,
No, we actually are the ones that do it, and then as far as like the 10% he was saying, then we go up to the clerk of courts, and they're the ones that handle the 10% and everything, but we have to file the paperwork with them, make sure that the 10% they actually have with them and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So he'll have to work on his auction skills.
Yeah, you can tell, just so he doesn't get on the radio like that.
No kidding.
Dispatcher's going, slow down there, cowboy. No, don't.
They won't have a clue what's going on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Talking with Sergeant Sam Klum here, along with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker here on today's Inside program, this final Friday of the month of August, about what goes on in his department. I guess I've always kind of been curious about that. Then is it that day, possession, take of?
It's not exactly that day. It's got the paperwork has to be filed, and then with the attorneys and everything like that. So it's kind of like in a mediation for a couple days until everything gets filed.
It's usually a back taxes issue, though.
Right.
Most often where somebody wasn't paying their, and the government took it over, and that's how you got involved.
Right. And then they got so many days to, whatever they won the bid on, they have so many days to complete the rest of that money. So they have to complete that in order to actually get the property then.
I keep thinking it is mostly all property then. It's not property like sheds and, how would I say, storage areas or anything like that?
Yeah, most of it's residences, so that we deal with the
Are you getting
taxes.
busier? I mean, with the rural economy the way it is?
I'd say it's been about the same, really. I don't think it's gone up or down, really. So.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, it is actually.
I don't really want to have my friends that are farmers out there getting foreclosed on by the county.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's pretty consistent. Talking with Sergeant Drew throughout the years, there hasn't been a spike in foreclosures that we've had to deal with. And they're out there. We understand that, and a lot of it the banks are handling. But at least with our position with the civil process, it's been pretty consistent. 2 to 5 properties or so would come up.
With your job, we talked about different paperwork. Besides the delivering, what kind of paperwork do you deliver? Subpoenas and?
Yeah, most of them are subpoenas for court or criminal complaints to defendants, everything like that. And if we're unable to get them served after a while, they're given notification, and if they don't show up for court, then obviously warrants are issued and everything like that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to chase a guy across the lawn to try to stick it in his shirt pocket.
Right. So
I didn't take it. I don't want it. Yeah, I used to hear those old stories, and it was wives' tales. They try to tell you how they tried to ignore it.
Ignore it for a while and hope it goes away.
Yeah.
It's not going to go away if you're issued a summons to appear in court. At some point, you're going to have to come in, whether it's a civil matter or a criminal matter.
So, do you use a marked squad?
Yep, I'm fully marked squad. So
Do you assign every deputy their own vehicle?
Yes, each deputy has their own take-home squad. It's marked as far as in the patrol division. The investigators have obviously unmarked cars, but every sworn deputy has a take-home squad car. We've been doing that for quite some time. We found out it took a long time to get to that point. We used to share squads, but we found that doing some research, they last longer, and it's actually cheaper. We couldn't buy a whole fleet of like 29 or 35 squad cars at one time, but throughout the years we were able to add a couple here and there. And now we're at a point where each deputy has their own car, and they last probably around 5 to 6 years. If you'd run a squad 24 hours, it lasts about a year. So longevity-wise, this is a way to go, but it just took a little time to attain that goal of each person having their own car.
You got 30?
Oh, we got more than that. If you count, we have 29 deputies that work the road. Then you look at the administration. Each administrator has a car, and so does each investigator. So we're probably, I'm estimating, I don't know exactly the number, but around 40 squad cars.
Do you divide that down on trade-in then?
Yeah, we do.
5 at a time, 10 at a time?
Usually. It really depends on the shape of the squad car that is up. If that deputy has been taking care of it, it might last a little bit longer, but usually around that 5-year mark is where we're seeing squads come in. And we have them spaced out, like you said, and it's usually around 5 a year we purchase. And then the Tahoes have been retaining some pretty good value, even having 140,000 miles on that squad car. Trade-in or auction, we've been the last couple of years doing pretty well with that. So that money will come back into our budget.
Does that go to state auction, or does every department have to trade in, or how does that work?
It's up to each department. As far as our department, the Tahoes we've been taking to auction. We work with a company that does auctions. Now the investigators and administrators, we can trade to a local dealer because we're using program vehicles at this time, and we don't get a brand new car. We get something that has got 30 or 40,000 miles on it, and it's cheaper. And then what we'll do is trade that car that we have to a local dealership, and that's what we'll use for at this time. We're talking about possibly going with brand new cars. We still haven't quite determined that with the change here at the Sheriff's Department.
Does the county have a maintenance shop to take care of that,
We
or does
do.
that go back through the dealer?
No.
With a new car, you could have warranties and stuff that need to be done by the dealer.
Yeah. With the new cars, they go for warranty work to a local dealership that would service that. Like the Chevys would go either up in Marshfield, I think it's Weiler's, and they're in Rapids as well. If we have a Ford product, obviously going to a Ford garage. This year we did a little bit of a change. We did some more research in reference to costs on new squad cars, and they do seem to go up every year. So we looked at some other options. Right now the entire fleet is all Tahoes for patrol, but we did some cost analysis and found that the Ford Explorer, Explorer, fell right in there too. So we gave whatever deputy was up for a new squad, I go, here, you got a choice, either the Ford or the Tahoe, and a couple of them chose the Explorer. So those should be in relatively soon. And also pickup trucks too. I know Marshfield PD has a couple, and so other agencies. We're going to try one of those this year as well. We traded in a couple of vehicles, almost basically even up for a brand new Dodge pickup truck, and we'll see how that works for us. The main focus that we talked about as an administration is when we get new squad cars, we want them to have either be all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. That was probably the biggest complaint not that the deputies were complaining about these Tahoes, because they are nice squad cars, is the four-wheel drive. It's really tough for winter driving. They're heavy vehicles, but it's a big difference between four-wheel drive and two-wheel drive. So that's a change that we've been making. A little bit more cost, so we have to take a look at that closely. But it's worth it for what we do.
See, I always thought, I was surprised when they went to the SUVs, because I always thought of that as being a 400 cubic inch with a 4-barrel on it and ready to run somebody down, out in the county there. You're doing an interceptor somewhere, and now all of a sudden they're running these big high wheel vehicles. It seems to me you could outrun them if you had a hot rod, but...
well, we don't advocate anybody trying to outrun us. First thing I tell people is, hey, if we turn
those radio things,
if we turn the lights on, please just pull over. And the first thing I tell people is, what should you do when you have contact, especially on a traffic stop? What's the first thing you should do? And people get licensed. I'm like, no, cooperate. Just be nice to us. We're going to treat you, professionally, and just it makes that situation go a lot smoother for everybody, But so the first things first, please pull over, And the Tahoes are all are pursuit rated. They're law enforcement vehicles. There's a few, like I said, other manufacturers out there. And right now we've been really looking really hard at the Tahoe, obviously, because we've had them for so long, and the Ford. And then we'll see as time goes on other opportunities for other vehicles out there. I think we'll probably stay with the SUVs, but that doesn't mean if something comes up that's economical, and it makes sense for us, we might go that direction. We'll see.
Talking with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker here on today's Inside program, this final Friday in the month of August. You're watching us here on Marshfield Media Access. Could be on Channel 989 if you have the Charter Digital tier, or you could be watching us on their Facebook page too here. And the program coming to you, as I said, this final Friday in August, because some of the things we talk about may have already been decided. We were talking about weather earlier, but talking into the vehicles, one of the other vehicles you had was a new UTV.
Yeah, we put in Lieutenant Hugestegger. I can't say enough positive things about what he did for Farm Technology Days. I know he's been on the show before, talking about Farm Tech Days, and just an outstanding event that so many people came together to make it happen. And Charlie was our representative from the Sheriff's Department, and with that event there was some grant funding out there that the executive committee from Farm Tech Days would receive, grant applications, and there were a lot of them. And Charlie wrote the grant for a UTV because there's a significant need at the Sheriff's Department for one. We're eventually going to have to get one, just because the ATV, UTV routes throughout the entire county are now established, and we knew that we had to put together some sort of patrol emergency response vehicle in a UTV. And he wrote the grant, and with his connections and his hard work throughout that whole event, it paid off, because they helped fund a UTV that we now have. We're still in the process of getting emergency lighting for it, a radio in it, but that's going to be up and running, definitely next year for sure, for the next season for the ATV and UTV routes in our county. And it's equipped for emergency situations. That was one big part of the grant. Okay, it's not just something for patrol purposes. It's for responding to an emergency where a normal squad car or emergency vehicle could get to, a farming accident.
That's kind of what I was thinking of. I'd forgotten about the trails. I'm thinking about in the woods, somebody gets hurt, or
exactly
if they're chasing some moonshiner or meth maker out there and you can't get to it with anything else, you got to have a way to get through the woods.
Exactly, and that's what part of the grant was. It wasn't just a patrol vehicle. We had to justify, reasons for it besides, patrolling, and Charlie did a nice job justifying that, and I'm real happy that the folks on the committee chose us to help fund that project, because, like I said, we were going to have to buy it anyway, and it was nice that the committee chose us, and we're very, very grateful for everybody that was part of that. And again, the event, I can't say enough positive things about how many people came and worked together. And Charlie just was our face of the department. And without, if he didn't have the the involvement that he did, I don't think we'd have gotten the grant. I really don't. But the connections that he made through the community, because Jeff, there were so many people part of that. And it was just, I've never been to a farm tech event. I'm sure Sam has, but this didn't come from a farm, and it was huge, and again, I know I'm being very repetitive, but I can't just say how happy that I am that Charlie, the work he did, it paid off.
So UTV for the Sheriff's Department now. Talking with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker. In Wood County, off the top of your head, what kind of vehicles? You've got a boat, you got a snowmobile, you got a UTV. What else do you have?
We've got a rescue vehicle. We've got a Hummer that's part of the rescue unit. We've got wave runners that are part of the rescue unit. We've got a armored vehicle, MRAP, that we got from the military a few years ago. You've got a SRT van that's kind of covert, so if you see that coming up, then it's something. If you see our MRAP out or our SRT van out, it's either for training or something's going on. We only utilize those vehicles for those two types of situations where they're high risk.
Are they troop carriers?
Yeah, they carry our entire SWAT team. We have one. Marshfield PD also has one, an armored vehicle, and we got those through the military. And the only cost to the department was getting them shipped here to Wood County. And then, of course, we've put some, we modified it a little bit, as far as seating arrangements, but there was minimal cost to having that vehicle. It's the biggest insurance policy that a department can have, having an armored vehicle. If you need it, you're going to be really happy that you have it. And it's been utilized a couple times out in the field for high-risk drug search warrants. And then we had our MRAP modified a little bit. We put a RAM on the front of it. And we were one of the first departments to do that. Several law enforcement agencies within central Wisconsin especially got an MRAP when we did. Portage County, Stevens Point, Wapaka, like I said, Marshfield did. And we felt that getting that RAM on the front of it that could go through a door or a wall was going to be very valuable. If you take a look, or if you recall the Jason Weiland incident up in Wausau, they had an armored vehicle. It wasn't an MRAP, but they had a Bearcat that had those accessories on it. And when they went to make contact with the suspect, they took out a whole wall.
They didn't go through the front door.
No.
When I saw that, I went, oh, my God, I didn't know that was procedure.
Yeah, and that was a big reason why, as a department, we said, hey, we need to have that type of an option with our MRAP. And one of our local fabricators down in Wisconsin Rapids, BDT, Dan Dix, good friend of ours, he put it together and had a couple modifications once we had it, but we were called to service in Wapaka where they had an armed barricade subject shooting at them, and they didn't have a way to get inside that building so the entry team could go inside and deal with the subject. So they called us, and it worked. Went through walls and doors, and we were eventually able to arrest that individual. So like I said, it's the biggest insurance policy that you can have as a department for your SWAT team. It doesn't get used a lot, and that's a great thing, but we do have it. Our SWAT team trains with it usually every month. It's a big vehicle. It's like driving a semi.
What kind of gas mileage you get?
Well, I think it's all right. It's heavy, but it goes up to 60 miles an hour. And like I said, it's I'm really, really happy that we were able to get it, and the cost was not anywhere near a new one would be.
There was a time, I guess, before Mideast war surplus became available when these were one department in a big area had something, and then you had to have mutual.
Yeah, Oneida County had a Bearcat, so Oneida County, Rylander area, they were selected through Homeland Security to have a lot of the equipment, along with Marathon County. But then part of that, having the equipment, was mutual aid agreements with, if we needed, they had to come and provide two people. But now you look at the response time. If you got an ongoing incident where you need it now, you're not going to have that armored vehicle for hours. They're going to send it as quick as possible, but you're not going to get it. So that was another thought that we had. Well, here's an opportunity to get an armored vehicle at a very, very, very low price tag. The value of the MRAP that we have now is like $700,000. We could never purchase that and expect the county to purchase that vehicle for that price. So I was very fortunate that through those programs that the government has, on the federal level, it's called a 1033 program, that those vehicles were available, and a lot of law enforcement agencies took advantage of it, and rightfully they should. I'm very happy that just in central Wisconsin, there's so many of them. In our county, Marshfield PD has one. So if we have an incident that justifies the use of it, we've got them around where we can keep our officers protected and the community protected.
Well, as a taxpayer, I'm happy too, because I paid the $750,000 the first time, and now I don't want it to be pushed off into a junkyard somewhere, and when they're still usable.
Correct. No, you already paid for it once.
Right.
So we modified it to our what we would use it for, and it's also a rescue vehicle. You got to understand that if you have a flooding issue, or that vehicle can get to lots of places where a normal vehicle couldn't. Just like we talked about the UTV, this vehicle can get to places that if there's an incident going on and somebody needs to be saved or something along those lines, we can use it for that as well.
Talking with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker here on today's Inside program, live on this final Friday of the month in August, coming to you on Marshfield Media Access, or you could be watching us on Channel 989 on your Charter Digital tier, the city channels. We'll be back with the final portion of our program coming up. AM 1450 WDLB's Inside program, as I've said, this final Friday of the month of August. If you're watching us on Marshfield Media Access or Channel 989 on your Charter Digital tier, I say Charter yet, a Spectrum Digital tier, I guess I should do them at least, courtesy of calling them by the right name. That's another place you can see us here, as you may already know the outcome of some of the things we talk about here. They're just ending as we're talking, coming off of the Central Wisconsin State Fair, and you said that you were more a part of this year?
Yeah, this year, Marshfield Police Department, Chief Groms and the staff reached out to us to help out with security with them. And, having those, as I spoke before, those strong working relationships really pay off. And I'm glad that they reached out to us because, it's something that just made sense to me that we could provide personnel on duty, and we had part-time people that are, part of our part-time program help out. And, that whole fair, I got an opportunity to be up there and help out with the patrolling, and walked around with Officer Aliakis for a few hours and enjoyed that. Allie's a new hire over at Marshfield PD, and she worked part-time for us, so I'm really happy that it would have been great. And I give her a lot of grief all the time, like, you'd look better in brown, but, she's in blue and she's within the county, so it's still a win. But no, the whole fair went, in my opinion, went off without very, very minor issues, if any, with law enforcement. And it's just great to have the opportunity to work together and make it an enjoyable, safe event.
As I think back on it, I saw more brown walking around there, but it didn't occur to me that was something that was asked for, or a change in policy at all. Yeah,
it wasn't really. It was just an ask. And we were very happy to make it happen, and I'm hoping, and I think it'll be something that will continue. I know years ago we used to have a booth there, and then we discontinued doing that, which is unfortunate, because that was an opportunity for the public to come up to see representatives of the sheriff's department. But if you look at this situation now, you have our deputies walking around the fairgrounds where they're approachable by anybody, and there's so many things out at the fair to do and see that I was amazed. I never got the opportunity to watch the at least part of the show animals. Like I mentioned before, I didn't come from a farm, but it was interesting. Allie had some experience with that, showing farm animals, and gave me the rundown and enlightened me.
Did you anticipate anything with the new open container difference, that being able to walk around on the fairgrounds?
Yes and no. I looked at it, part of that, you're vetting, people that are of age. You're checking their IDs. So if they have the wristband, you're going to see people walking around. As law enforcement officers, we're going to know that they've already been checked. So it is just a little bit more freedom for people to enjoy the entire fair with a beverage. So, but on the flip side of it, yeah, it could have happened, but it didn't. So I think that move worked this year. I know that there was concern out there with some of the committees, but on the other side, it seemed to work during the entire fair, because there wasn't any that I'm aware of that we were told that somebody was quite intoxicated, causing a disturbance. I'm not aware of that happening. It might have, but nothing got to our level as far as deputies weren't reporting anything that, hey, we're dealing with several intoxicated people causing a scene here at the fair. It didn't happen, so I would expect that's probably going to continue, but that's going to be up to...
40 years ago, that was maybe a little more common. That's how it became a policy to have people in an area in the first place, and checking IDs and things like that, and keeping people in. But society just isn't that way. You don't have too many brawls anymore.
No, I would agree. Kellner Corn Fest down in Grand Rapids area, that event stopped just because exactly what you said years ago with... the disturbances, the fighting, people being intoxicated. Now they brought that event back several years ago, probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and very similar to what you're saying now. It's just people are behaving. It's different, and that's become a very successful event in the Kellner area.
All right. Well, we're running out of time here. Sergeant Sam Klum, good to see you. I hope you come
Thank
down
you for having
sometime and tell me about what it is you do. I hope you don't get any excitement. I mean, usually that's a good thing, but not necessarily. And Shawn Becker, our Wood County Sheriff, always good to see you up in the area.
See you, Jeff.
And we'll talk again here coming up next month with the Sheriff's Department here on today's Inside program on AM 1450 WDLB.